right, Mike Spanier. I'm gonna get started, and if you're ready.
I'm ready to go.
Okay. All right. If you're able to mute your line in your video, that's helpful. That way we can have less background noise, and hopefully it'll be a little bit more clear. We have 216 people on the call at this point. May have a lot more, which will cause us to slow down if we have a lot of video and sound going. So if you could monitor that, mute your line and turn off your video, that would be very helpful. But first, introductions. My name is Jason Nickleby. I'm the coordinator of officials with the league. I'll cover some administrative items, talk about some mechanics, rule adjustments for this year, and then we'll take a look at some plays and talk mechanics and philosophy and how we want to cover those plays. And on here tonight with me for clinicians are Mike Spanier. He's our state coordinator of football officials. Longtime NFL official, retired. John Savansky, retired NFL official, working with back judges. Fred Bryan, current NFL umpire. And I don't know if Mike Cannon is on, but he's a current Big Ten referee, and he will be assisting us as well. He did that group of clinicians that helped out at the clinics that we had a month and change ago. Before we thought we were going to have a season, we had several hundred people on then, and we're glad that you're here tonight, and looking forward to having a season. So with that, we'll get going here with the presentation. So first of all, a big thank you to all of you. Obviously, this is a very unusual season. Came together at the last second. Initially, the board chose to delay the football season until the spring, which was a pretty common choice and plan across the country at various levels. And over time, they determined that it was a better choice for us to try to get in some kind of a season here yet this fall. And I think a big piece of that was the fact that soccer, swimming and diving, cross country, girls tennis, were going pretty well at our level, at the high school level. And I really attribute that to the schools following the guidelines and the expectations and doing it really well. And that allowed us to have the flexibility and the option to perhaps bring football and volleyball back into the fold, which is the decision that the board ultimately made. Now, because we're starting this weekend with the first games, that leaves us with not a lot of wiggle room or time. So if we have postponements, cancellations, whether it be COVID or weather or other, there's not a lot of wiggle room, and so games will get, if they get canceled, they're probably not going to get made up for this year. We are not going to have state tournaments for any of the fall sports. We will have section tournaments or something that is a postseason type experience, but we will not have a state tournament for any of the fall tournaments, and that was voted on by the board at the most previous board meeting. But we will have a section experience of some kind. But what I would say about that for everyone is anything we can do to be flexible and adaptable to what's going on, to our circumstances, is really going to benefit you long term. Mainly our mental health, and just know that there's going to be changes, there's going to be cancellations. We already have 12 football schools that had an originally scheduled game for Friday or Saturday that have since needed to be changed, rescheduled, canceled. So the game that you're assigned to on Friday may not necessarily be the game that you end up working. You may not end up working with your normal crew. and you may not end up working at all. So it's going to be a real interesting and fluid year, and we just ask for your patience and flexibility. We're all doing our best we can to provide kids with the experience of playing high school football. So we're really thankful for all of you, your service. We need you. Recruitment and retention has always been a key aspect of the officiating program, but I would say none more important than this year because of the need for folks to join us in the officiating ranks. And we know that there's going to be a number of officials that don't feel comfortable officiating this year, and we understand that, and we support them. They should make the decision that's best for them and their family. And if that means they're not officiating this year, we understand that. So for those of you that are able to officiate this year, we appreciate you and your work. We will support you all the way as we get through this year. And again, anything we can do to be safe and flexible and have a positive attitude about this, I think we'll have as good of a season as we can have. From an Arbiter sports perspective, make sure that we're getting on there and completing our requirements. Those are due by Thursday at midnight. So if we haven't completed the online meetings, exams, etc., make sure we get on there and take care of those pieces so that those are over and done with, so we can move on with the year. That will be helpful. If you're having questions, concerns, things come up, be sure to reach out to an association leadership person or one of the coordinators. They can assist you, and if they can't assist, then call our office, and Pam or I can help you out with any of those pieces. But just don't say, well, this doesn't work, I'm not going to do it, because that's not going to work out. Let's make sure we get those pieces completed. And if you have any questions, concerns, call a coordinator, call an association person, or call the office, and we'll help you. For this year, many of you may have noticed only the new officials are receiving a packet. Returning officials, anything you need from a rules perspective, adjustments, supplement to your rule book, other documents, all those are available on Arbiter to download and print if you wish. New officials will receive a packet, and they will have a rule book and a Mechanics Illustrated. It's last year's Mechanics Illustrated, which all veteran officials received last year. We do have a supplement to the Mechanics Illustrated, and that is available on Arbiter to download and print as well. Even though the season was a late addition here, we still plan to provide as much mechanics, rules, philosophy, training as we can provide. Again, none of this training, video training tapes, play clock, memos, etc. None of that is required, but if you feel that it will benefit you as an official, we encourage you to check those out. If it doesn't work out for you, we understand, but we want to provide those resources to you. And if you're interested, we encourage you to watch those. We did put out a new rules or COVID adjustments and mechanics training tape last weekend. It's a longer one. It's about 40 minutes or so. You don't have to watch it all in one sitting, but that should have information that should cover you for this year. And we're going to go through some of those slides here yet tonight. Central Hub, again, has everything you need. All your eligibility pieces are there. All the links that are important for officials to have are located there, as well as the printed version of the exam. And on the eligibility tab, that's where you find all the online meetings and the exam. This is the soccer screenshot. However, football is exactly the same as this, where you have the school year, which means you paid for that year, the concussion module, general officials, the football specific online rules meeting and the exam. So even though this is soccer, football looks exactly the same. And if you have all green check marks underneath the eligibility tiers, then you are eligible for that level. For this year, the only difference between section/state eligibility tiers and regular season is the clinic requirement. And all of you that are on tonight, this will count towards the 3-year credit, and give us a few weeks to get this manually entered, but tonight counts for that, and we will get a form out to you yet tonight to document your attendance. To get to this, we're going to the eligibility tab, scroll down, find your state tournament tier or section or regular season, and they will list all of your requirements under the tier. Again, just click on the blue link for whatever you want to look at: concussion module, general officials, football, sports specific, or the football exam, and they will take you right to those pieces. Just a reminder, the concussion module has updated state statute information and updated board policy info from last year. So therefore, all coaches and all officials are required to view the concussion module. If you are a coach in another sport, or even in football for that matter, you should view the concussion module on your coach's dashboard, and then send us an email and we can get you credit for that on Arbiter. Keep in mind, just going back here, keep in mind that the football specific online meeting and the general officials meeting are 2 separate meetings. And they are videos. You click on the link, watch the video. When it's done, just close the browser. You'll get a certificate of completion. It should credit to your eligibility page within about 24 to 48 hours. If it doesn't credit within 48 hours, you can send us the certificate, but it should credit within 48 hours, and then you should be in good shape. But make sure you watch both of those. Those are 2 separate meetings. For the exam, click on the 2020 football exam link. Again, this is soccer, but same thing. You click on the exam link and you will have the full 100 question NFHS exam. Again, you have 2 attempts to take that. Make sure you have your rule book with you, work with others. If you're new to officiating, don't try to take this without the rule book or without working with somebody. Most of us who have been working football for quite a while still don't have a total grasp on the rules, and we may never have a total grasp on all the rules. So taking the test as a new official without some help is going to be a challenge. So just make sure that you work with somebody on that piece. Both the exam and the football specific online meeting are due on Thursday night. So again, if any of you can get the message out to your fellow officials to get that completed and get that taken care of prior to then, that would be very helpful. Once you've completed all of your requirements, you can see your eligibility badge by going to the MSHSL officials account. All of you have a central hub account and an official account. And you'll click on that and you'll see this. Click on profile, and that will take you to your profile page where you have your name, email address, other contact information. And this is where you'll see your eligibility badges. If you complete all of your requirements, you'll see the highest level tier that you're eligible in. So if you complete all the state tournament tier requirements, you'll have a green badge. And this is what you can copy into an email or put on your phone or print out to show schools that you've completed the requirements and are eligible to work varsity contests. They're color coded. Again, not a big deal this year because we're not having state tournaments. However, if you have a green badge under your picture, that means you're eligible for all levels of play. And the same will go for the future. We no longer have the level system. Hopefully this is the section, or the eligibility tiers are easier to understand than the level system. Again, emphasis is on safety. Football, safer than ever, but obviously we now have an added layer of COVID in addition to concussion and head safety, proper tackling, etc. So we need to work on officiating these plays by calling safety fouls when we see them. For 50-50 on safety fouls, throw the flag. If we're 50-50 in legal formation, don't call those. If there was ever a year that we don't want game stoppers, it's this year. We want to try to get through the game by calling the big ones and then getting home as fast as we can, just to lessen the amount of contact we have. The more we can do that, the better. But if we have unnecessary and excessive contact, we need a flag. 50-50 on these, throw the flag. But with that said, remember, targeting is not automatically an ejection. It can be, but it's not automatic. So if you're not sure on the ejection part of it, throw the flag, 15 yards, mark it off, and let's move on without any ejection. If you're 100% sure you can put contact into other buckets such as blindside, forceful, excessive, targeting, if you can put it in multiple buckets, we really should be considering a disqualification for that kind of contact. And it's best if we can have multiple flags, but sometimes there's only one person down. Ultimately, our job as officials is to make the game fair, safe, and fun. And if we're not making players adhere to safety rules, it's not going to be fair, it's not going to be safe, and therefore it won't be fun. So we need to do our best to officiate to safety rules, trying not to get the game stoppers, try to make sure that we get those pieces as well as we can. Okay, let's talk about football and not about administrative stuff. So this is the presentation that went out to all officials that was narrated last weekend. Just going to touch on a few key points on this. If you want more detail, check out the presentation, have a dialogue with regional coordinators or your association leadership folks, and they can help you through some of these pieces. But we'll just kind of go through some of the basics. We talked about the fact that we need all of you. Anything you can do to recruit and retain is very helpful. The restricted area and the team box can be extended to the 10-yard line. The teams, the schools don't have to, but I would have to believe that every school is going to do that. Now, with that said, line of scrimmage officials in particular, we're not going to go searching for people outside of the restricted area or the team box. However, if they are on the field, out of the team box, out of the restricted area, trying to officiate for you, that needs to be addressed. They have extra room to provide distancing, and that's fine. But as a result, there's really no reason that they should be out on the field, and that needs to be addressed. And if they're not going to follow your directions the first time, then we need to start penalizing coaches and others that are outside of that area. Okay. We still need to check footballs prior to the game. Mark them with a pen or other that you checked them. If they want to put in 10 footballs to be checked, that's fine. We're not going to switch footballs out on kicking plays. That's been the case in the past, and nothing's changed. So just make sure we're following that piece. With chain crews, we've recommended that they have 3 members of the chain crew. It's not required. We've recommended that. So if they have more than that, they have more. But many of you may be used to auxiliary chain crews. It's unlikely we'll have those, but it's possible because it's a recommendation, not a requirement. Make sure we're meeting with the play clock operators or game clock operators prior to the game. Outline your expectations. Tell them it's very important that they watch your signals, and make sure you have a conversation with them about if we need to adjust clocks, how are we going to communicate that with you? Can you hear announcements from the referee if they have a mic? Do we need to call it up through the coaches? Hopefully we don't have to shout it up to the press box, but I know that happens at a number of fields as well. But make sure you have a conversation with them about what your expectations are for game clock and play clock operator instructions. Only one captain at the toss. That's both for regulation and for overtime. In future years, the entire crew is going to meet with the head coach of the home team first and then the visiting team second. But for this year, just the referee and the umpire, and they can communicate information with the rest of the crew after they meet with them. And reminder, communication with game officials should be limited to the head coach. And this, I know we have conversations with other coaches, but we really need to limit that and have our distancing to provide as safe of an environment as we can. Equipment and other uniforms relating to uniform and equipment rules, all those apply. They can wear plastic shields on their face, but they can't have tint. That has not changed, and not even with the doctor's note, those are still illegal. From a tooth and mouth protector perspective, we are encouraging the players to not touch tooth and mouth protectors, limit contact to those, but you know, they're going to revert back to old habits a lot of the time. But the reminder to them is try to limit contact with it and leave it in as much as possible. Periods can be shortened at any time. Running clock can be instituted at any time. If we have a 42-point game in the second quarter, we really shouldn't be trying to prolong games, but we need to have agreement with both coaches, and then let's give them the options and help them with those options. At halftime, officials, you know, it's talking about players and coaches, but for officials, if you can't be in an area where you can distance from others and, you know, be in a safe environment, good ventilation, etc., then we would encourage officials stay on the field at halftime also, or go to a separate space, keeping in mind there aren't going to be very many fans at these games to begin with, so find a space where you can have distance and space. Measurements are limited to fourth down plays only. So if it's 3rd and inches and the coach wants a measurement, the answer is no. Referees make a decision, and that decision is going to be final. If it's 4th down, you want to measure, that's fine. But if we're starting a series on a big line, we really shouldn't have to measure all that much anyways. And when I say a big line, I'm not saying, you know, always on the 45 or the 50 or the 40. We're talking about 42, 43, 44, etc., but not on the 43 and 1/8 yard line. Make sure we put it on a big yard line. That way we really can limit measurements to really when we need it. This is a big change, although the coaches really like it, and it's possible that we may keep this in the future. But for this year, we're going to resolve tied games with this method. Again, one captain at the coin toss with the referee and the umpire. The choices for the winner are offense, defense, or end of field. Now, once the end of field is chosen, that's the end of the field that we are going to play on for the remainder of the overtime periods. Okay, so typically they have that choice for the rest of the overtime, but they're not going to have that choice. Once that's made, we're just going to stay on one half of the field, and we're not going to change. The loser of the toss will exercise the remaining option, and then they will have the choice of offense or defense for the second overtime period and subsequent even numbered periods. The winner of the toss will have the choice of offense or defense for subsequent odd numbered overtime periods. If we're still tied after 2 overtimes, the offensive team must attempt a 2-point try from the 3-yard line. They can kick, but it's not going to be worth anything. It's going to be a 2-point try, and all other MSHSL overtime rules will apply. Generally speaking, if you're not feeling well, stay home. It will be really disappointing if an outbreak or a cancellation or a shutdown can be traced to an official. That will be really disappointing. You know, don't put yourself or others in that situation. If you're not feeling well, stay home and we'll work it out. We would suggest you come dressed and ready to work. Locker rooms are either not going to be provided or they will be very limited. So it's just like the days we used to work or still work 10th and JV games. You show up, put your shoes on, and out you go. So plan on that for varsity contests as well. And with that in mind, it's probably recommended for long travel games that if you can travel by yourself, that would probably be recommended. We're not requiring that, of course, but recommended. And if you do travel somebody, we would recommend you wear a mask and those kinds of pieces. But just consider that as you're looking at travel for your contest. Referees, if you're wearing a mask and you're giving an announcement, lower your mask, give the announcement, and then you can put it back up. We've allowed electronic communication in the past, and that has not changed. But we're recommending that crews try to use electronic communication whenever possible, just to make sure that we have distance between us and other crewmates and players and coaches. Typically, most crews use a Midland model, but you're welcome to use other methods as well. Electronic whistles are permissible. Supplies are very limited, number one. Number two, they're not very loud. Electronic whistles are not necessarily made for this kind of environment. And they're in the process of developing electronic whistles that are more conducive to officiating football or other sporting events, but they're typically not meant for that, so they don't really carry as well. So you're welcome to use one. Masks are not required of officials, but they are required of coaches and players on the sideline. Players on the field are not required to have masks. I'll tell you that I think you can make masks work. I just worked a game on Saturday. When I was by players or coaches, I had the mask up. When I moved back to my position, I would put the mask down, put the whistle in my mouth, officiate the play, put the whistle back in my mouth, blow the whistle, and then when I came into players, I would put the mask back up. Now that's maybe challenging for line of scrimmage officials, so we would encourage you to give as many options a try as you can. We're just trying to limit spread and contact, and we're trying to keep the officials safe. So if officials can wear masks as much as possible, that would be encouraged and recommended. We talked about meeting with the coaches before for the game, talking about meeting with the clock operators. The big change for this year mechanically, two changes. One, line judge and linesman will switch sidelines at halftime. We had discussions about this mechanic change well before the break or the spring, and that was instituted into our supplement to the Mechanics Illustrated. So we plan to move ahead with that. In addition, we've had conversations with other levels of play who utilize this mechanic, and their feedback was if they felt this mechanic was encouraging spread or was more dangerous, that they wouldn't do it, but they don't have evidence of that, so they are continuing with that mechanic. So we chose to continue with that as well. The line judge will start with the chains in the first half, wherever they're located. Make sure both line of scrimmage officials meet with the chain crew before the game. But once we get into the game from a mechanic standpoint, our mechanics really don't change. Free kicks, we're at the pylon. Scoring kicks, we're on the line of scrimmage, so nothing has changed. The only major change really for this mechanic is line judge, the position, will release at the snap. So if you are the linesman in the first half, you are going to be in the line judge position. So if we have a punt, you will release at the snap. Otherwise, running plays, mechanics will not change. Passing plays, back judges, you will key to the line judge, the person, and not to the side of the field. So if you're looking for keys and strengths of formation, you're going to key to the line judge, the person, and not the side of the field. Now, with that said, as long as you and your crew know which side you're keying to, then we'll never know if you're keying to the line judge, the person. Just make sure you as a crew are on the same page of which side you are going to key to if we have a even strength formation. And then penalty enforcement wise, this hasn't changed either. The U should walk with the linesman, but they're going to walk with the linesman, the person, and not the side of the field. If the linesman is busy, walk off the penalty with the line judge, confirm with them, and then put the ball on the ground. And umpires, we really should work on this aspect a little bit more. We've kind of taken it upon ourselves to do penalty enforcement, and that's great. However, penalty enforcement is a crew responsibility, so make sure that we work with the line of scrimmage people to confirm before we put the ball on the ground. And then the rest of the crew, make sure we're doing the math and checking off what the umpire and the linesman are doing for penalty enforcement. For the umpire, we made this change later on that the umpire will be in the offensive backfield except for scoring kicks, about 12 to 14 yards deep, straight back from the tight end on the left-hand side of the formation. And we are going to stay on the left-hand side of the formation for every play, again, except for scoring kicks. We'll be in our traditional place under the goalpost. But otherwise, even if the quarterback is left-handed or the kicker, the punter is left-footed, we're still going to stay on the left-hand side. We'll be straight back from the tight end position, even if there isn't a tight end. That will be our initial position. But for free kicks, our mechanics won't change. What I've noticed on video is umpires, we're not following the mechanic that was instituted last year, which is once the ball is kicked on a free kick, we need to let K cross our face, and then we come onto the field in a J-type shape and work inside out. And if the return comes past you, you're going to let them pass you just like a regular scrimmage play used to do when we were in our old umpire position. And you're just going to turn and officiate blocks. And responsibility for the goal line is going to be back judge and the line of scrimmage officials. So come onto the field, officiate inside out, let them pass, and then you can clean up from the backside if you have a return that that gets past you. When we're spotting the ball and establishing initial position, we're going to work to the spot, slow down anywhere between 28 and 32 seconds on the play clock, put the ball on the ground, check it with the referee, make sure we're good, and then back up to our position. Don't turn and run away, because if we turn away and to go to our spot, if they snap the ball, we're going to not see it. We're going to be running for our lives, and we want to make sure we finish the season with the same number of officials that we started with. So make sure we back up to our spot. Have a communication with the center and the quarterback before the game, if you can, to let them know that you're going back there and that they need to wait for you to get past the running back before they snap the ball. The other officials, if the umpire is not in position, make sure that we're shutting the game down. We need to make sure that they're safe. If they're not in position to officiate, shut the game down. Okay. Our primary keys at the snap: center, left guard, left tackle. Referees, you no longer need to look across the formation. You're going to be looking at right guard and right tackle, and then quarterback will be still your primary responsibility. On running plays to the left, umpire, you are going to officiate lead blocks, and then when the play is over, you're going to go to the inbound spot, and the back judge will triangle it in just like they always have, and then you will back up to your spot. On running plays to the middle, you're going to officiate at point of attack, come up, get the ball, place it down between 28 and 32 seconds, clear off with the referee, and then back to your spot. On running plays to the right, the referee will have front side blocks, and the umpire will officiate backside, and then go to the inbound spot. Back judge will triangle in, as is typical. On a passing play, if we have a quarterback rolling to the left, umpires, you're going to back straight up and officiate front side blocks, and the referee will cross you because they are going to be responsible for the quarterback. Okay. Umpires, if you see a face mask or targeting or some other bad hit on the quarterback and the referee is not down on it, then certainly fine for you to throw on something like that. But for the most part, the primary responsibility is going to fall on the referee to officiate the quarterback. If we have a straight draw, a QB draw or drop back, the umpire will officiate left tackle, left guard, and center, and they really won't have to do anything else beyond having our vision on those three guys. And then passing play where the quarterback rolls to the right, the umpire will officiate backside blocks and will work to the inbound spot. Penalty enforcement mechanics will not change. We just discussed how we want to do that. Reverse mechanics, umpires, you're going to have goal line responsibility. The referee is going to stick with the quarterback or the punter. So see if you can get back. If you can't, you can't. Line of scrimmage will get there, but and referee can too as well. But we want to make sure that the quarterback and the punters don't get killed on change of possession and kicking plays. When we're spotting the ball with time not being a factor, again, slow ourselves down. The teams are going to run our pace. So even if they're in hurry up, too bad, they're running our pace between 28 and 32 seconds every time and try to be consistent with that. Now, if time is a factor, so last 2 minutes, close game, second or fourth quarter, then we're going to go sideline to sideline, just like our mechanic used to be, pick up the opposite wing, put the ball down. If you don't feel you can make it to that umpire position back behind the offensive line of scrimmage in time to safely and effectively officiate, then by all means go to the traditional umpire spot for that play. Just make sure you can get to a spot where you can effectively and safely officiate. Okay. Those are the mechanics, adjustments, changes. I don't know if I mentioned it previously, but if you have any questions as we're going about mechanics, rules, etc., throw those in the chat. We will get to those as we can. I see that Matt Gallagher is helping out with questions in the chat, and that's very helpful. So appreciate him doing that. But go ahead and throw any questions you have about mechanics, etc., into the chat, and we will get to those. And if we don't have any major pieces to address, we're going to try to take a look at some plays. But first, I'll turn it over to Mike Spanier or any Fred Bryan, any other clinicians if they have any comments before we get into the plays.
Jason, or guys, and gals, I just say that this year, as Jason mentioned, patience and understanding and flexibility are the key. We have a couple mechanics changes, which I think the pace of games and so on will allow us to really focus on those changes. And again, we want your feedback as we go on through the season, and stay safe.
Thanks, Mike. The slides that I just showed with the rules, adjustments, and mechanics pieces, those are all available on the video presentation that's on the MSHSL YouTube channel. And that video is available to any of you or anyone across the country. If they're bored, they can check out my presentation. But the slides are available there as well as comments on those pieces. Ooh.
Jason, while we're waiting for comments or questions, I would just ask that share the information that we'll not be doing a formal observation program this year. However, we will be looking at film through Huddle, maybe asking some of the observers throughout the state to take a look at some of the officials or crews, and realizing that there may be a combination crew, not always the same people. But we also want to take a look at our mechanics since we can't be at games to see how things are going mechanically with the changes and so on. And then also adhering to some of the COVID concerns that are out there. So no formal observation forms. You won't have that this year. However, we will look to get some feedback, and we'll provide feedback to you if we see something that we think will be both helpful and something for you to consider. So any questions in regards to that, we'll be willing to answer those questions also.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, what I would say to that, a couple things. One, if you as a crew have access to streaming or huddle or other for your games, if you haven't been observed in the last couple of years, just submit a request to us to take a look at that, and Mike can set up a schedule to see if we can't get one of our observers or clinicians to take a look at your film to provide some feedback. So we're happy to take a look at that if you have access to it. I think it would be easier for us if we know from you that you have access to that kind of things, so that we can provide a possible schedule for people to take a look at that video. We know it's not the same thing as being in person. We don't see how you handle coaches or dead ball situations, penalty enforcement. We know that that's different, but this is another avenue to perhaps provide some feedback and comments. The other thing I would mention, going back to the COVID-related pieces, is we're not going to be COVID police. So if we see teams that or individuals that may not be adhering to COVID guidance or adjustments the way that they should, we're not penalizing them. We're not ejecting. We're not forfeiting games. However, you are responsible for your own personal safety. So if they're violating your personal safety and space, then by all means that should be addressed. If you see widespread, carelessness, not following the guidance, then file an incident report so we can address the school. Now, with that said, we have not seen that this fall with our other sports that have been playing. The schools have done a nice job of following the expectations, and we would expect more of the same for volleyball and football, because we're trying to get through the season, and anything we can do to do that, including wearing masks and distancing and washing our hands and staying home when we're sick and all those common sense pieces, if we can follow that, we're likely to get in the highest percentage of the season that we can. So that's what I would mention on those pieces.
Jason, can I have a question? This is Casey Pack.
Mm-hmm.
The overtime rule, is it after 2 overtimes, if we're still tied, is it 1 play from the 3-yard line, or is it first and goal from the 10? And if they score, it's a 2-point conversion mandatory?
1 play from the 3.
Okay, I didn't know which way it was going.
Yep, we're trying to cut down on the number of plays, and we want to get down from 4 to 1. So
very good, thank you.
Yep. Okay, we're gonna go through some plays here. Typically, we do. You can vote with your phone when we're in person, but we're just gonna go through them with clinicians. Of course, if you have comments, questions about the plays, just throw those in the chat, and we're happy to answer those. With 240 people on the call, it's possible and probably likely that the video may not be the most outstanding quality as it relates to speed and jumpiness, but we'll do the best we can, and hopefully you get the gist of what we're looking at. If you're not muted or your video's not turned off, and I think most people are, but if you're not, if you could do that, that will help improve the speed, but it won't be perfect. But what we're looking at here is plays that involve illegal blocks, chop block, holding, rough passer, unnecessary roughness. And when we're looking at plays, put yourself in the position of of the official or the position that you work and think about mechanics, think about rules, think about judgment, philosophy, put those all together, and what would you do with the play if you were officiating that play? And that's how the clinicians are going to go at breaking these plays down to try to give you a better sense of what we should be looking at from each position. And all these pieces don't work in isolation. So we could have the best mechanics in the world, but if our rules knowledge and our judgments are great, we're not going to have correct calls very often. And if our judgment is good, that's fine. But if our mechanics are not good and our rules are not, knowledge is not good, we may have good judgment, but we're not going to be in the right spot or use the right rules to make decisions. So we need to put all these pieces together. And for all you veterans officials on the call, keep in mind we have a high number of new officials this year, which is great. Do your best to support them with mechanics and rules and judgments and and philosophy, mechanics. Let's get on the same page on that and help them out so that we have a Minnesota way of officiating and not a Rochester way or a Duluth way or a Twin Cities way. It doesn't matter. We're all from Minnesota, so we're all going to follow the same mechanics, rules, and philosophies. And if we do that, if I watch a game on a Friday night, I shouldn't be able to tell where the game is taking place other than I know it's a Minnesota crew because they're following those expectations. So help out the new people as best you can. Okay, so we'll show the play one time through. And then for this first play, I'm going to ask the clinicians to talk about their pre-snap routine and positioning and what they're looking at. And then as we go through the plays, we're not going to talk about those things as much. We're really going to get down to who has a judgment to make on this play and what they would do with it, so we can try to get in more plays. We will take a break around 7 o'clock or so, and then come back, look at a few more plays, and then call it a night. So that's the plan for the rest of this evening. But we'll show you this first play, and then we will turn it over to the clinicians for their comments and feedback. Again, it might be a little jumpy, but hopefully you get the idea. Okay, so I think Mike Cannon is on the call, refereeing the Big Ten. Mike, want to take through initial positioning for the referee, pre-snap routine, and any other pieces you'd like to address.
Okay, so I just, where you're comfortable, start somewhere in that 12 to 15 yards deep. I'd say 1 or 2 steps outside the tackle or tight end. Again, whatever you're comfortable at and whatever allows you a good view into the snap so that you can see how that goes. A pre-snap routine, you're counting the offense. Obviously the clock, you always need to know the clock situation, and you should always know the down and distance. With our change this year with the umpire going to be in the backfield, we just need to worry about the guard and the tackle on our side, and any other people that are lined up on the right side of the ball.
Thank you, Mike. Fred, do you want to talk about umpire positioning pre-snap?
Certainly, with the umpire in the offensive backfield now, you're going to be positioned pretty much behind the tight end. In this particular case, I think this is a 9-man game, so it's a little bit different. But if you got some landmarks like those hash marks, I know those are the pro hash marks, but if you got some landmarks, you can use those to help you out to get your positioning. If you're going to err one side or the other, I'd err on being a little bit wider than being a little bit tighter. But that's going to be your position. prior to getting in that position, obviously, though, you're going to have to set the ball and get out of there. Someone asked a question earlier, do you backpedal all the way out? Obviously, you got to be mindful of if there are players coming up to the line of scrimmage and things along those lines. If you got players coming up to the line of scrimmage, obviously they're not going to be snapping the ball till they get set. So you can kind of turn around and look and see where players are coming and get yourself a little bit clear. But once you get clear of all those players, you should be backing out so you can see what's happening at the line of scrimmage. Talk to your quarterback primarily, but also to the center. But just tell those guys, hey, don't snap it till I get clear. And then once you are clear and backpedaling out, you can say something. You know, I have no problem saying something to the quarterback, like you're good, or something along those lines, just so they know that you're clear. But if they start speeding up and they start snapping the ball while you're still backing out, talk to them the next play and say, hey, you know, slow it down just a little bit. I got to get into my position, things along those lines. And as far as your primary responsibilities at the snap, you're going to have the center, guard, and tackle to your side. And at times also that tight end will come into your purview, just depending on what the play is and how they run their initial play.
Thanks, Fred. And I think it's a good point. You know, I don't know that we've mentioned it in past clinics, but Fred talked about landmarks, and for referees, good for you to pick up the landmarks, whether it's hashes or you know, something else, a logo, whatever it might be, to you know, to help you with your positioning on the field. Remember that in high school, there's no in or out of the tackle box for as it relates to intentional grounding. So not as critical to know that, but it's just helpful for you to know where you're at in the field and give you a better sense of what they can do blocking wise at the line of scrimmage, and same for umpires as well. So good to have a good frame of reference for that area of the field. Mike Spanier.
Hey, Jason, before you move on to Mike, someone
Yes.
asked an umpire question about if the umpire is not clear and they snap it, do we shut it down? The short answer is yes. Don't be afraid to shut it down.
Yes.
Especially if you're going to be in the way, so to speak, of a developing play. And I say the first time they do it, you just warn them and say, hey, you know, I got to get to my position. Don't do that. But if it becomes an issue where they keep doing it, then I think we can have the discussion, Jason, on whether we want that penalized or not. But don't be afraid to shut it down. And referee, you might see it more or be in a better position, so to speak, to shut it down than the umpire, because the umpire might be backing out and not have the whistle in his mouth, or you know, if he's using electronic whistle, may not have it in his hand. So the referee may be the one to shut it down, but also as umpires, if you're still in the way, shut it down.
Yep, I totally agree with that, Fred, and that's how we would want to handle that. First time, that's their freebie. You know, if we have to shut it down for that reason, they get a freebie. After that, if they do it a second time, hit them with a delay of game. And if they do it a third time and anything after that, it's going to be a team unsportsmanlike. Hopefully it doesn't get that far, but make sure we have a conversation prior to the game with the quarterback primarily, but also the center. Make sure I'm back. And again, as Fred mentioned, referees are in a pretty good spot to see the umpire and where they're at. And if they don't get back past that last back, we have to shut it down. Otherwise, they're certainly not going to officiate very effectively. And secondly, and most importantly, they're not going to be safe doing it. So make sure we shut that down, have a dialogue. And it might not hurt early in the year, referees, to have a dialogue with the head coach at the pregame meeting indicating, hey, by the way, our umpires in the offensive backfield, make sure they clear the last back or we're going to have to shut it down. So I don't think it hurts to have that conversation with them prior to the game.
And Jason, one more thing. I'm sorry to keep prolonging.
No problem.
But from the umpire perspective, for those of you that haven't worked in the offensive backfield on a consistent basis outside of the punts, my biggest suggestion to you is to just take a breath, slow down in the sense of don't worry about moving a bunch. I know when we're on the defensive side, we got to worry about the crossing receiver and the linebackers and all that stuff. Well, when you're on the offensive side, everything's going to be going away from you. So you don't have to be as mobile in the sense of, we obviously don't want your feet stuck in concrete, but it's okay to sit there and let the play develop and watch things from a more of a stationary position rather than worrying about getting out of the way of people. And I think you'll be surprised if you take that attitude and just kind of, take a breath and let things develop and not worrying about moving your position so much. You'll see so much more from the umpire position. And Jason, you might want to add, being a center judge in the Big Ten, from your perspective, how that works out as well.
Yeah, I agree, Fred, and I think they'll get a feel for it as we go. It will be an adjustment, but I think it might be a nice, pleasant surprise for a number of you to be able to officiate without trying to avoid flying bodies and feet and crossing receivers, etc. So I think it's going to be a nice, pleasant surprise for you to be able to officiate without not having to worry about that. And then, a lot easier to just officiate a side of the formation versus, well, I got guard, center, guard, and if the play develops this way, well, then I got this. I think it's going to be a little bit easier for you to zone officiate from back there. And if we're 12 to 14 yards deep, there really isn't going to be a reason to have happy feet like Fred mentioned. There's nowhere to go unless the quarterback scrambles to your side or drops like a 7-foot drop, which is not typical. But outside of that, we really don't need to move. We can just officiate from a stationary position, 12 to 14 yards deep. And we're going to be a lot more accurate with stationary feet. And that goes for any sport. Our judgment goes and our accuracy goes way up when we're stationary. And that's even for our deep officials. If we can be stationary, we're going to be in a better shape. So I think what I would say for umpires is, you'll get used to it as we go. It'll take some adjusting. We're planning to have some in-season meetings on Zoom. So hopefully we can get Fred on there. And after you have a couple games under your belt, you can ask some more clarifying questions, and hopefully we'll get that streamlined as we go. Mike Spanier, line of scrimmage.
Okay, the two line of scrimmage officials, as far as the pre-snap routine, we want to be sure our sideline is clear. This is looks like a 9-man game, and the sideline is not clear in this particular slide. But we want to sure we give ourselves some room in the sideline. We'd like you to be about 1.5 yards to 2 yards off the line. Give yourself a wide perspective there. We want you to know the down and distance and the status of the clock. This is 2nd and 10. We're almost inside a minute. Obviously, if the clock is moving, that's one factor. If the clock is stopped at 1:07, we want to make sure we're aware of that in case we have a false start and then any time runs off. And as a line judge, we need to catch that along with the back judge or any official for that matter. And then we want to be sure that we know who our key or our areas of responsibility are in the running play. Of course, we know that we have the lead blockers, and then in the passing, in this case, we'd have the number 2 receiver in the slot receiver, and make sure that we ensure that we have a healthy, safe snap, a legal snap, so to speak.
Okay. And keep in mind, line of scrimmage, that in years past, we had to have a little bit more of a focus on tackles. But with the umpire in the backfield and referee focusing on the tackle on their side, they are going to have more responsibility for those players. And so you can lend a bigger hand to eligible receivers, second wave blocks, and front side blocks on your side as well. And then working on backside when it goes away from you. But to Mike's point, initial positioning wise, we need to work deeper. We don't want people in the restricted area, the team boxes. Make sure that that's clear. they have more room than ever. There's really no reason to have a situation like the one that's on the screen. They need to be spaced out, and they need to give you room to work, both to avoid collisions and from a COVID perspective, we need to have spacing. So make sure that they are doing that and work with them on that. John Lusabansky, back judge, pre-snap and responsibilities.
So the back judge is going to be 20 yards deep from the ball, pretty much in the middle of the field here, looking down to the bottom guy. Although nobody's in press, so they will kind of just zone up and know they're going to start kind of in the bottom zone and then see where the play takes them. As far as pre-snap, again, being aware of the game clock and even more specifically the play clock. If it's a visible play clock, that's one thing. If you're in charge of the play clock, or you need to stay aware of that as well as a back judge. I think I don't know. We've talked about this, but I'm going to assume now with the change to the umpire that on running plays in particular, we're going to ask our back judges to be a little bit more aware of that second level blocking that goes on. And they can take a look in there and help out a little bit, which is probably where they were looking in the past anyway, or should have been looking to some degree, depending on the point of attack. On passing plays, obviously, we're gonna go where the play takes us. We go man zone ball, and in this scenario, we don't have to really stay with or be on our key, because again, they're not in press coverage. So those are the big things pre-snap. Obviously you've got the count as a back judge, counting the defense and making sure, in this case, we have 9 in a 11 person game, that we have 11. And those are the big items, I think, pre-snap and our areas of responsibility.
Yeah, very good. Just a couple things, some questions in the chat, just to touch on, getting back to line of scrimmage and the umpire. So when we're talking about ineligible players downfield, that responsibility is going to fall on the line of scrimmage officials, in particular, the line of scrimmage official that the play is going away from. Now, keep in mind that ineligible downfield is one of the most incorrectly called fouls at all levels of football. And we just get fooled by where the ineligible players end up and not where they were at the time of the release of the pass. And if you have a high floater, they can end up 10, 15 yards downfield by the time the ball is caught. And so it looks really bad when in fact it was legal and they were in a good spot at the time of the release. So just make sure that we're using a 2-step process on that. So line of scrimmage officials, you see the ineligible player, they're in a spot that they don't belong, then we look for the ball. If we see the ball is gone, foul. If we look at the ineligible player by positioning wise, they're not where they're supposed to be, we look for the ball and it's gone, no foul. Okay, so it's a 2-step process. Pick up those 2 pieces, but umpire is not going to have any piece of that. And the umpire, in addition, is not going to have any piece of illegal forward pass as it relates to quarterback or the passer being beyond the line of scrimmage. That's going to fall almost entirely on line of scrimmage and the referee. And that's why we're holding the line of scrimmage until the pass is imminent anyhow for line of scrimmage officials. And then to follow up on another question for the umpires, typically near the goal line, umpires would pin the ball to the ground and allow the line of scrimmage officials to make a decision. I still think, even though we're positioned in the offensive backfield, I still think we can get in there and do that. Is my feeling. Fred, I don't know if you have a different opinion on that.
Yeah, I saw that question too, and it is different in the sense of when you have something, especially if it could just go straight up the middle, and those line of scrimmage guys got to come in from the sidelines, come in and try to find the ball. you can try to get in there and pin it, but quite frankly, since I've moved back to the offensive backfield, I haven't gotten in there that much to try to pin it. There's a lot of bodies to try to get through in on those situations, and it's primarily come down to the line of scrimmage guys making that call on their own and just getting in there and trying to find the ball. When we think about it, it's, I don't want to minimize the importance of it, but it's the kind of play that doesn't happen a lot in a football game. You might have a situation where a team's down there and trying to run the ball in 2 or 3 times a game. So I don't think we lose that much out of it in regards to having the umpire in the offensive backfield, but it's, from my experience, is primarily a lot of it's just been falling on the line of scrimmage guys. And Spanny, if you want to talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, I would just add that it just behooves that the line of scrimmage officials come in hard, get in there and dig. The umpire is typically the second or third person in that can help get players away from the ball while you dig and find and pin the ball. And if you can delay, it's one of those calls that you can be delayed. Once you get in there and you dig and you find that he's in the end zone, the player's in the end zone, the ball's in the end zone, you go up with the touchdown signal. If you're both line of scrimmage officials are in there digging and you both see it that it is the ball's in the end zone and in possession, you come up with both of you with a touchdown. Quite frankly, since they've moved the umpire to the back in the last 7-8 years, I think it's been, we really haven't had an issue with it. And I think you just have to get in there and not rely on the umpire I think in the past, we relied on the umpire and stayed wide. Now we need to get in there and go all the way in and find the ball.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I think that's good advice. Pinch hard. Get in there and dig into what Mike mentioned about it can be delayed. That's fine. If you get in there, find the ball, figure out it's a touchdown, then I think it's certainly fine and probably important in some cases to restore some time to the game clock if there's a significant delay. And if there's even bigger delay, maybe we should kill the clock until we can find it. But if you go up a touchdown after 8, 9, 10 seconds, if we want to put 10 seconds back on the game clock, I think it's fine. If it's in the middle of the first quarter, I wouldn't do anything with it. But if time is critical, then I would consider doing that. So
I think we usually relied on the referee to come in and make the decision as far as the clock or the back judge.
Mm-hmm. John, I'm going to play out. Can you discuss pass interference, incidental contact, tangle feet, and what we're looking for in philosophy on that?
Yep. So, first of all, the back judge comes over and I think gets in a pretty good position to look at this. The line of scrimmage official does a really good job of putting himself in a position to be looking right at a real nice window for him. This is one of those plays where, because we have people on the ground, it looks like a mess if you get to this late. So the back judge may have gotten here later than the line of scrimmage official, in which case he just left it alone, which was good. Because again, when you look at the end of this, we have players on the ground. But the thing is, the defenders are both looking back and the offensive player is looking back. And they're really doing what they're supposed to do. If feet get tangled up or there's somebody steps on somebody's foot or we have tangle foot, we're just going to leave that go and not have pass interference here. And we shouldn't have pass interference, even though, like we said at the end, it kind of looks like a mess. So I think the line of scrimmage official did a great job here, just coming in and calmly signaling incomplete pass. And the back judge, he's got to look at it too, and he doesn't get involved to mess that up, because the right call is no call here.
Yeah,
If I could add too, with the line of scrimmage official, as John mentioned, he does calmly, give two strong, incomplete signals. And he's coming to a stop. We really like to have our officials stationary when they make the call, if at all possible. I think that's one of the things I've noticed with the line of scrimmage officials, that feel like they have to get downfield to cover the pass, to be where the receiver is. Don't worry about trying to catch the receiver or catch the pass, but get as close as you can. And when there's action, you stop and make the call. That's much better than moving. And I think this official does a nice job of that.
very good. All right. Next, several plays. Not going to really get into the pre-snap routine of it, just kind of discussing, some of the bigger points by the positions that are involved. So we'll show this play. We've seen it from both offenses here today. All right, so this is primarily a line of scrimmage and back judge play. So I'll go to Mike first about where our vision should be, and how we can best pick up these kinds of blocks and make a decision.
Well, we'd be looking from the line of scrimmage perspective. The line of scrimmage official on the bottom would be looking at the tight end, tackle, and go to the point of attack, and then follow up with the runner. Now, the runner is not threatened for the most part until after the point of attack issue is here with the hold. It's clearly the hold. You can see he's turn them. A defender doesn't run backwards that way, and so you can tell that that definitely is a grab and a twist and a turn of the shoulder. And he makes a nice call here and continues to officiate and follows the play out of bounds.
Yeah, Mike, I think as line of scrimmage officials, I think we can get caught looking at the ball or the ball carrier and not get out to blocks in front. And this line of scrimmage official does a nice job of that, of going to blocks out in space. The runner's not a threat to be fouled. There's nobody by him. And so there's really no reason to stare at the ball carrier. In fact, we have another block to make a judgment on. Totally fine, or we shouldn't have holding on the first block.
No.
So we're good with that. And Mike Cannon, you wouldn't once this quarterback gets to like the tight end side of things, you're gonna let him go, right?
Yeah, I'd let him go by then for sure, and then I'm just gonna clean up on the backside.
Sure. And umpires, now that you're in the offensive backfield, you'll be picking up those front side blocks. But then once he gets back past that first wave or that your initial keys, then you're going to pick up backside blocks as well with Mike. But I like the line of scrimmage officials' work here, officiating out in space in front of the ball carrier. And then, as Mike said, maybe most importantly, continues to officiate, because something that we're all guilty of at some point during the year is admiring our flag and forgetting to finish the play. So that's what I liked the best about this play is the line of scrimmage official continuing to officiate. But John, can you speak to, when does the back judge transition their vision on this play and what kind of input they could have?
Well, I think the back judge probably would go to this first block, although it doesn't last very long. So hopefully he would get off of that block fairly quickly and then start to look ahead of the ball and transition to the guy that really has the brick right here. I can't tell from the video because you see back judge coming over later, looked at this play a lot. Would the back judge have a great look at that shoulder turn? He doesn't have as good a look, I don't think, as a short wing. So I can understand why maybe he wouldn't be down on this. I think another thing is there's some hand stuff up around the helmet face mask here going on towards the end of the play that you want to be cognizant of. And the back judge would want to come all the way over to the sideline on this play because we end up with 2 or 3 players out of bounds and with a short wing that has to go administer a foul or communicate that information. So I think the back judge's biggest thing is he should be probably all the way over here out of bounds at the end of the play, whether he's down on that for holding or not.
I'd also add, Jason, that the official does a nice job, the line of scrimmage official does a nice job of keeping his head up and continuing to officiate and turn and looking out of bounds versus not being concerned about leaving the spot and going to his flag or going to the referee. So just a real nice job by the line of scrimmage official here.
Yep, and good cleanup by the back judge. So it's a really well officiated play. Okay, we got a lot going on here, as you can see. So this is a crew play. Maybe we'll start with Mike Cannon. With the umpire in the backfield, it's still your primary, but just talk about how you would officiate this play and finish it up.
Well, so I'm starting, about the 5-yard line probably, and as the quarterback drops back pretty deep and quickly, I'm going to back up myself. I may even drop right back to the goal line and then start to come laterally across the field. Even though the umpire is going to be there, I've still got the quarterback all the way. So I've got it. I'm going to watch this block by the tackle at the 10-yard line there. But that one looks pretty clean. I'm just going to make sure that I've got eyes all around the quarterback. There is a guy that's coming up that's on the 15-yard line right now. He's kind of got a brick in a hand. He's coming after the quarterback. So I got to make sure that I see that contact on the quarterback. Especially now with the umpire in the backfield, I'm not going to have any idea who catches this pass. I don't need to know who catches this pass. I just want to make sure that I see all action on the quarterback all the way through him going down to the ground.
Very good. And Fred, maybe the best advice you can offer is how to, put yourself in position to, assist as much as you can on a play like this.
Well, starting out here at the snap, you're gonna be lined up where a tight end would normally be. There isn't one on your side, but you'd be lined up where they would normally be. So you'd probably be closer to that second hash mark at the snap. The only block you're going to be concerned about is probably that tackle, because all those other blocks, the guard and the center and all those guys look like they're double teaming and there's really no threats there. So you're going to be watching that. And when this quarterback starts scrambling like this, you're probably going to end up getting pushed pretty close to, if not into the end zone, just because you want to keep some space between you and that action. But while you're getting pushed back that far, you still have to be officiating. So you're not just, worrying about getting out of the way, probably still officiating that block. You see this 34 coming up. You might be able to assist the referee on what's happening with 34. And then at this point, when you see him winding up for this pass, this would be an opportunity for you to start looking on where that ball goes. You're not going to rule on whether it's a fumble or a pass. You're just going to officiate the play as it develops. If for some reason that guy would have dropped that ball, I wouldn't come in signaling incomplete. I'd let the referee make that call all the way. But once that ball is caught and you see who catches it, it's number 79. You got to come in and start having conversations with the other officials and say, hey, 79 caught that ball. I didn't have it tipped by anybody that made him eligible. So just start having those discussions. And this is the kind of play as a crew, I think you just got to slow down a little bit and start talking things through and getting the result of the play. Of course, 79 ends up fumbling it. That's why he's got a number 79 on. Otherwise he'd be playing a different position. But he fumbles it. So you got to come in and figure out who's got the ball, who caught it, were they eligible, all those kind of things. This is like Jason said, starting out, there's a lot of stuff going on in this play.
And as Fred mentioned, backing off and giving yourself space to officiate and not just running for your life, but trying to officiate the play. And you're probably going to get backed off into the end zone. That's totally fine. In fact, it's where we need to be because the referee is going to have goal line responsibility and the umpire is going to have end line responsibility. I know all you umpires are figuring this change of mechanic is going to be your chance to signal touchdown. Just not the case at this point. You still get to signal safety, or maybe a touchdown if it's deep in the end zone. But the referee will have goal line primary, and umpire will have end line primary. Mike, talk about positioning as a broken play or a scramble like this occurs and, where your vision is.
Are you talking?
Spanier. Mike Spanier.
Okay. Well, I like, first of all, from the line of scrimmage perspective, you have trips on top. So the bottom official, line of scrimmage official, will be holding the line of scrimmage. And he does a nice job here and holds the line of scrimmage and has his head on a swivel and is watching, blocks and so on. And of course, you have a pass that's completed to an ineligible receiver, and it certainly is permissible for the line, for either of the line of scrimmage officials to throw their flag on it. But also on a scramble and a broken play like this, you want to be conscious of illegal receivers downfield. So from that perspective, but this official does a nice job of covering this play and coming in and killing the clock and signaling. And I think the line of scrimmage officials did a nice job on this particular play. You don't want to leave the line of scrimmage. We need to have an official on the line of scrimmage. I think these guys do a nice job. These officials do a nice job in this case.
Yeah, it's just a wide open space for the line of scrimmage officials to pick up, and you see the umpire close at the end of the play, which is great. But with the mechanic and the positioning of the umpire in the offensive backfield, line of scrimmage is going to have to take more ownership of the end of this play, especially with a fumble and possible recovery. They're going to have to pinch harder. Potentially dig where, with the other mechanic, the old mechanic, the umpire was there, as you see in this play. But this year, the line of scrimmage is going to have to take more ownership on this play. So
the last thing that I'll add, Jason, is that when a play like this is over, make sure when you're discussing potential fouls, also discuss the result of the play. And I'm not sure what the enforcement is for illegal touching in high school, but the result of the play may be something that the team wants to take rather than enforcing the foul. So just make sure as umpires and other officials, you have that full discussion about what happened on this play, the potential foul, the result of the play, what happens if they accept the foul, what happens if they decline it, all those kind of things.
Yep, for sure. And don't get so excited about having the foul and what to do with it that we forget to officiate to the end of the play, because I'm pretty sure if blue recovers the fumble, they would much rather have that. So make sure that we continue to officiate all the way to the end of the play.
Yeah, we'd want the line of scrimmage official, if he threw the flag, to be sure that he would come in and tell the result of the play, but also be sure that the ball was not tipped. And that's what Fred was referring to earlier, is that he could see that the ball wasn't tipped. That was his main concern. As to whether who caught the ball was not really his concern at that time. So it's one of these plays where you have to get together and piece it, but not forget that perhaps the result of the play might be the best option.
Sure. Okay.
Jason, I was just going to go back and say, from a back judge perspective, you know, you're at the top initially with the trips to the top. Pass coverage and everything kind of breaks down pretty quickly here. I mean, you got to have a feel kind of what's going on and sense that it's not going to be a pass downfield most likely. And once you determine that, your biggest thing is going to be, you got a lot of folks coming back towards the football because of how this play develops. So you want to be careful for any kind of blindside block or somebody taking a shot at somebody's ankles from behind that shouldn't be. That would be your first thing to look for. Then probably helping with dead ball officiating, you know, and helping sort things out, because you're the one person in this play that really hasn't had as much pressure or stress on you as the four other guys probably have. Once you come up at the end, hopefully you're the one that's being calm and can sort out maybe where we're going to go with enforcement, what down we're going to be at, what's the position of the ball, some of those other things that other people probably aren't thinking about right at that moment. You can take some responsibility for, and really the dead ball officiating probably being the biggest piece.
Yep. Thanks, John. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. We're gonna be a little excited on a play like this because it's so unusual and there's so much going on, so much to piece together, that it'll be helpful for the one person who's not really as involved, the back judge in this case, to be that calming force of the crew and get everybody calmed down and back down to earth so that we can get this piece together. Really interesting play, lots going on. Just put yourself in the position of the officials and think about how you would handle this mechanically, communication-wise. It's good to practice those kind of things before a play like this happens so that you feel a little bit more comfortable and confident about what you're doing. Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute break till 7:10. The attendance form is in the chat. Go ahead and click on the form, fill out your name, email address, etc., or copy paste the link into a browser and complete the information. And that's how we're going to verify attendance for tonight. So please do that. And we will be back at 7:10. We'll go through several more plays and talk mechanics and philosophy at 7:10. Hey, if you're having some challenges with the link, I think somebody copy pasted the link a second time, so maybe click on that or copy that into a separate Chrome browser or Microsoft Edge or Firefox or something like that. I wouldn't recommend doing it on your phone. It's kind of hit or miss with those forms, but if for some reason you still can't work that out, just shoot a quick email to our officials account and we'll mark it down on the list at a later time. But it's preferred if you can get in the form just so we have it all in one place. But understand if there's some challenges there. Okay, gonna take a look at some more plays and again, any questions, comments, concerns about the play, mechanics, rules, etc. Just throw those in the chat and we will get an answer to you. So on this one, I want to start with Mike Cannon. Mike, with the umpire in the backfield and they're going to back off and you're going to cross their face, at what point do you give up the quarterback or do you continue to close? What's your feelings on that?
Well, I'm going to try to follow him as far as I possibly can, Jason. But like in this case, about at this point, I'm going to give him up because the short wing is right there. He should be able to pick up this and there's really nobody even threatening that quarterback till he gets up out to the sideline. And so there's no reason for me to try to be right on his tail all the way out there. I'm going to have a look at that. And I think this referee does a nice job and he follows up and he gets over there relatively quickly. So I think he can help have a conversation about the horse collar tackle.
Very good. Fred, anything you want to touch on this one?
Sorry about that. I was muted. Not much to add in regards to what Mike Hannon said. You're going to be looking at that initial block of that tackle because those other blocks, like I said, they get kind of caught up in the wash. And then once that quarterback kind of crosses your face, don't follow him too much. Just kind of look backside a little bit. Nothing's happening out there. So at this point, you just be kind of doing some cleanup.
Very good. Mike Spanier. Oop. Did we lose Mike?
He's muted.
Oh. See if we can.
You want me to go?
See if we can. Yeah, sure.
Well, the back judge at the start of this play is going to be down at the bottom with the three, there's three receivers at the bottom. As it turns into a quarterback scramble or a running play here, I would hope or he or she, the back judge, is zeroing in on this block right here at about the 12. The short wing, I think, has a good look at the horse collar, but hopefully the back judge would be coming over and getting a look at this block because it's definitely the guy's got a brick in his hand for doing something not right. As it turns out, probably is just a side block, but it's really suspect. So he should have some information on that, and then continue over to dead ball officiate because again, the short wing is going to have to report the foul and deal with all that goes with that.
Okay, I'm back here. Sorry, it wouldn't let me unmute for some reason. We have trips to the bottom line of scrimmage official. None of the receivers are being pressed, so he would immediately go to that first block by the tackle and can get off that because it's nothing. There's nothing there, and then switch to the runner and the blocker coming up. He can get a look at that block that John was just talking about, but it appears that it's a side block. He does a nice job of giving himself some room. He's backed off behind the white. Just be careful you don't come in too quick because the wash that comes in sometimes you can get into that position where they roll up on you. But I think he does a nice job of kind to keep his head up and getting the spot and officiating the play.
And I'd like to touch on the block that John mentioned. Go back. I think this is a blindside block foul, and I think it's one we should call. And this is going to have to be back judge all the way. The line scrimmage officials got all this in the middle. The back judge is going to have to get this block down here. And yeah, he follows through with his hands, but I think the initial contact is with his shoulder. And so I think this is a blindside block with force. It's not initiated with open hand. So I think this is a foul. And it's one that we would want called, but it's certainly a horse collar tackle. And I'm happy that we picked that one up. Okay, so we haven't had a free kick yet here. I think we've had these mechanics for 2 years, I think, where the line scrimmage officials are on the pylon, the back judge on K's line, umpire on R's line. Again, 2 yards off initial position for back judge and umpire. Remember, umpire, you're primary for the pop-up kick. Watch kicks in pregame, so we're ready to adjust. If the kicker kicks short, we can adjust. But when I watched the Prep Bowl games from last year, I didn't see a lot of short kicks. I saw a lot of kickers that could kick it deep. Now, that's maybe not typical, but we should start at the pylons and then adjust accordingly. Way easier to officiate forward than it is to officiate side to side or backwards. So that should be our initial position. But what I'd like to have the clinicians touch on is how our vision should change on free kicks to where we can try to pick up illegal blocks, because no one cares about the spot. If we're off on the spot by 5 yards, people won't really notice or care, but they will notice if we miss blindside blocks and illegal blocks, big takedown holds, because we're not looking where we need to look. And remember, the umpire is coming onto the field, as is the back judge. So I'd like maybe the clinicians to touch on how we can do that effectively. So I'll start with John.
So the back judge is at the top. Of course, the first thing the back judge is got to be concerned themselves with is making sure that these guys are lined up accordingly and are stationed where they need to be. We don't want to start a kickoff with somebody in a bad position, just like we don't want to start a kickoff without having 11 players on both sides. So whatever we need to do to prevent that or do some talking to people, we should have done that. So now we're off the white, backed up off the white. We're going to let the kick go. Remember, on a normal kickoff, we're going to give a little bit of leeway. If it's an onside kick situation and the onside kick it, it's a plane of glass. Once they cross our face, then we're going to move on to the field towards the numbers and kind of make a bit of a J turn, looking up the just inside of the numbers or into the numbers. In this case, if we are getting to that stuff right in front of the ball, hopefully we might get a look at this initial block that appears to be a bad block or a block in the back. That would certainly be a good get by the back judge if he can do that. And in this scenario, the back judge really, we don't want to officiate space. So what we want to do is kind of let the play take us to a problem area. And in this case, there really is only one thing for the back judge to be, looking at, and that's point of attack here. Again, you have players between you and the ball carrier, but you're not so concerned about the ball carrier. You're concerned about the action where all those players are. So go to the hot spot. If you see somebody in chase, like we probably have here, then that should be a big red flag for you. Again, you don't want to come down too far when you come on the field, 10 to 12 yards, because you are, again, the last line of defense to the goal line. But in this case, if you get into that slot and can kind of see where that action is lining up, you might have a chance to get this call. This call, if it's the opening kickoff, is going to set a lot of tone for the rest of the game if we're able to nail that block in the back.
Yeah, Mike Spanier, Mike Spanier, why don't you talk about, line of scrimmage and how can we get our vision to see this block right here at the 21? What's your thoughts on that?
Okay. The line of scrimmage, of course, officials are at the pylon, and now the ball goes to one side of the field. And so the line of scrimmage official on the bottom comes up and is officiating the action coming from his sideline in. However, there's really no threats there, and if you play it a little farther, you can see that he could look right into the where the action occurs and might be able to pick up that foul. The official on the line of scrimmage official on the top, as you can see here, there's no threats to his side of the field, but he could have shifted immediately to where the action is and might have an opportunity to pick it up. The line of scrimmage official on the top, again, coming up, can go right to where that action is and may have an opportunity to see, although there's players in between them. And then, of course, finishing the play, the line of scrimmage official on the top can get the forward progress as because the official on the bottom has to stay with the action of the runner being driven back. But it'd be a good get for either one of them, especially to start out the game.
And I think that's the most important piece of this play, as John mentioned, about setting the tone for the game. If we have referee right behind that return man and looking up the gut, line of scrimmage at the pylon, looking into that point of attack, back judge looking at point of attack, hopefully one of the three of us can pick up this block. It's right at the 21-yard line, and set the tone for the game. And you see him go flying by there, and he's in chase, so he's chasing him and there's space. So if we have a player in chase mode, which we have here, then any contact in the back with displacement is going to be a foul. If they're not in chase, they can have one hand on the side, one in the back, and bury them, and that's fine. But if they're in chase, contact in the back with displacement is going to be a foul, and that's what we have here. And again, this is the first play of the game, so just being focused and ready to officiate. I know we like to coast into the game, but we have to be ready from play number one all the way to the end. This one is just talking about roughing the passer philosophy. So I'll lean on Mike Cannon just for his comments on roughing the passer.
Well, obviously, he's our guy, so we gotta keep our eye on him the whole way. In this case, as soon as he steps up into towards the line of scrimmage, kind of out the side of the pocket, we really got to keep an eye on him and anything that's happening around him. What I look at philosophy-wise is not necessarily time from how many steps was it, they took before they got him, but just my gut tells me, is it too long? And also, could they have avoided the contact or could they have avoided the severity of the contact? You know, I in this play, I think the defender does a pretty good job. You know, he goes into the midsection, so he's certainly not going high, not trying to hurt him that way. He's virtually on top of him as the quarterback releases the ball. You know, the only thing that you could maybe say is he puts all his body weight into that quarterback as he goes down on top of him. But that's almost just kind of how this play happens. So I would say overall, I think the defender does a pretty good job on this play.
Yeah, I think the main point, as Mike mentioned, is, you know, none of us as referees are really good enough to count steps and determine that it's 2 steps, so therefore it's a foul. You know, you just have it in your gut. You know it when you see it. If it's a punishing blow, unnecessary, could have avoided it, then we should really consider roughing the passer. And from a vision standpoint, we need to get to that free defender. And we're not really concerned, once we have free defenders, we're not really concerned about offensive holding at this point. So if you see now this defensive end gets off that block and is a free defender to the quarterback, now we're not really concerned about holding. We want to make sure that we get roughing the passer fouls. And we want to see that free defender because they are the most likely threat to foul. They also could go in high, and we have targeting to deal with. And if we get to that free defender late, targeting is going to be a very difficult call to make. It will look ugly, and we're going to go, yikes, that was bad. I wish I saw it all the way. So pick up that free defender, and you'll have a better chance of getting that correct. And then, as Mike said, if it's a punishing blow, you know, meant to punish the quarterback, unnecessary, drives them into the ground, then those are the kind of indicators we would be looking for with roughing the passer. Okay, Fred, I think this play is going to be a lot easier to officiate this year with our positioning. But Mike Spanier might be good for you to chime in on how line of scrimmage could potentially assist. But we're looking at the block by the left tackle and left guard.
So starting out here with
center and the tackle, I'm sorry.
Starting out here with positioning, you'll probably be using the numbers as a landmark because there's no tight end out here. But as Jason said, that's right in our initial responsibilities, looking at that center guard tackle coming out to your side. And when you see someone go low right at the snap, that's where your primary focus needs to be, to see what they're doing in regards to, is it a clip? Is it a legal low block? Is it, in this case, a potential chop block? So from the umpire's perspective, this should be a call where you're in the exact perfect position to make a judgment on this. And, you know, I think you got enough here for a chop block because you got a low block by the tackle and then engagement by the guard.
I agree. From a line of scrimmage perspective, you know, there's nothing. Your key is the tackle. There's no receiver that's threatened that you need to be concerned about. The formation is strictly to read the tackle, and you see him go low, and the other the guard goes high, or center rather goes high, and that's a chop block. We need to pick that up at the line of scrimmage. Those are ones that we have to get. We want to be sure though that if there's 2 flags that we both have the same thing, there could be, you know, one been in a situation where one had chopped, another one had a hold. So be sure that you've gotten together. If there's 2 flags, like you should, anytime there's more than 1 flag, to be sure you get the call right.
And then we would report 56 and 77 to the referee.
Correct.
If we do have this, and line of scrimmage, I know how it is. You know, when I was working high school football, I was working line of scrimmage, and chop block and cut blocks were just not in my repertoire. And they really should be as line of scrimmage officials. I know we think our umpires are super talented and awesome and are going to pick those all up, but we need to be ready to assist on that, especially when this kind of block opens up to us. But I think, or I believe, this block is going to be easier for the umpire to pick up and call correctly with our mechanic this year. Okay. Yes.
Jason, did you want to go back to that play?
Sure.
Briefly talk about the back judge, because he's got one thing to do, and that's probably go to this block by 84, the tight end here at the top.
Mhm.
He and that defender end up in kind of a wrestling match. This is just a good example of where you don't get to take a play off here, back judge, on this running play. You want to watch these guys probably come in and talk to both of them, because they end up dragging each other to the ground.
You can see them there at the top of the screen.
Right. I don't think we have a foul, but I definitely think we want to come in and do some talking to, so that doesn't brew into something else later on.
That's a really good point, John. And, you know, the players need to know that we're watching them. So they don't think that they can just get away with whatever they want, you know, in between plays. And referees, this is certainly a place you could help with your presence. And even the wing at the top of the screen, if you might have to pinch and come in harder to have a presence, just so, as John mentioned, this doesn't progress into something else.
I agree. The wing official has a shorter distance to go and should make his presence known. The back judge, like John said, doesn't get to take the play off, but he's got a little ways to go to come in to break it up, to make sure it doesn't extend into something else.
Okay, this is a punt play. Again, our mechanics on punts haven't changed. You know, we're doing the same thing, positioning mechanics wise. The only change is the line judge, the position, and not the person is going to release on the snap. So this is the third quarter, so we're going to be in our typical position, if you will. So the line judge is going to be in their spot and they'll release. But if this was the first half, it would be the linesman who's on the home team side in this case, and they would release at the snap. But other than that, our mechanics are going to be the same. And just take a look at this play as it develops, and just put yourself in the official's position and how you would officiate this play and what you might do differently from a mechanics and judgment and philosophy standpoint. Okay, so first thing, I would just want to point out, umpires again, even in the old mechanic, don't turn your back to the ball. You cleared yourself with the referee, and that's great. If you want to turn at the point that you're at the backs, I guess I'm okay with that. But make sure that we don't have our back to the ball very long. We want to make sure that we keep it in front of us. And this is a time before the game, talk to the punter, the upbacks, the snapper, to make sure that they know that you need to be back behind the punter before they let it rip. Otherwise, we're gonna have to shut it down. So same philosophy as before. Mike Cannon or Fred, anything you want to touch on punts at all?
I think that, the referee appears to be in good position here. Jason, I like to start at about 3 yards behind the punter. And I'm certainly going to be looking at my half of the line of scrimmage and the blocks that occur both at the line and also in the upbacks as the defenders work their way back towards the punter. I'm going to be mainly responsible for any contact on the punter.
And can you touch base on running versus roughing and what you're looking for there?
Yeah, you know, if they hit the plant leg, or a lot of force into the punter's body, then we go with roughing. If they just hit the kicking leg as they go by, then generally we would have running into.
Very good. Fred, anything to add?
Well, you already talked about backing out, so make sure we're doing that on a consistent basis. At the snap, you're officiating your half of the line. In this situation, they got a shield here, so you're probably going to have some responsibility for the shield that's in front of the punter. You can help the referee out in situations whether if it's close to a block and the ball is tipped, you can help him out with making that call. So if he has the flag down for running or roughing into the kicker, you can tell him the ball was tipped. Could also help the referee out if the ball skips into the punter. And then once the ball is kicked, essentially you and the referee are splitting the field and you're going down your side. I wouldn't be in too much of a hurry to sprint down there. Like I said earlier, you're a better official if you can keep your head movement to a minimum. So get yourself in a position where you can officiate your side of the field and officiate from a broad perspective, but you don't have to worry so much about sprinting downfield once the ball is kicked.
Mike Spanier, anything to touch on punts?
Well, you know, it looks to me like that perhaps this play should have been shut down, if I remember right.
Yeah.
The one where the receiver or the gunner down below never gets set or moves upfield before the snap. So if we shut it down, we don't have this mess. We don't have the shank and the short kick and so on. So from that perspective, I think that would have been something I would add. Also in the lineup, the linesman up on top is on the field. He's almost right near the top gunner. You want to be back, should be back by the white and give himself some perspective there. So that's the only thing I would add. It's such a short kick that you don't get an opportunity to see the blocks on this film, but you certainly would have to finish the play because it should have been shut down. But that's when stuff happens. So that's all I would add.
Very good. Yeah. You know, typically line judges, the position, you're going to have your 1/3 of the field. If the ball lands in that third, you'll take the ball and the back judge will take the blocks. If the ball's in the other 2/3, back judge will take the initial responsibility of the return man, and then line judge will pick up that first wave of blocks. But as Mike mentioned on this play, you know, the wide receiver or the gunner at the bottom of the screen never really knows where he's supposed to be. He's moving around, trying to get set, moving up. If we just call this a false start and shut it down, we have a lot less issues to deal with. The punt's ugly, you almost had a block. It's better to just shut this down, call the false start, mark off 5 yards, start over clean and move forward. But the one thing I would add is remember the option, the penalty option of assessing it to the succeeding spot. In this case, they could add 5 yards to where the ball ends up here at the 33-yard line. You know, we ended up declining it and letting them keep the ball. That's certainly an option, but I'm sure they would prefer another 5 yards. But I think if we just go ahead and shut this down as a false start, then we're not dealing with some of the fallout after the fact. But John, anything you want to touch on back judge mechanics wise?
Well, it's not a traditional punt play, obviously, with any kind of carry, but we're going to have our back judge at the top are favoring the head linesman side. Obviously, I want to start 3 to 5 yards behind the deepest receiver. Give yourself some distance wide too. 8 to 10 yards, so you have a good angle looking in. This play, when the punt breaks down like this, I don't want a back judge come sprinting up, because about the time you do that, then this kick bounces off or does something funny and goes back upfield more. So you don't need to come rushing up. And the back judge doesn't here. You see him come into the pitcher now, and that's probably fine to help with placement of the ball. But the big thing for back judges is get a good initial position, get behind the deepest receiver, stay wide enough, and you really don't have to go anywhere until a catch is made and something happens. Yes, you're responsible for the catch. In this case, I still don't want you to sprint up. I mean, you can watch this guy make the catch and still stay back, because there's always a chance, something funky is going to happen with that football.
Yep. There's a question in the chat about getting into the hashes by the receiver. What I would say from a legal substitution, becoming a player, all those kind of pieces, let's not nitpick that. Because remember, this is a professional field. They don't have to get in that far, and typically the numbers aren't placed where they need to be by rule. But let's not nitpick that. If a receiver, whether it's a punt or a regular scrimmage down, doesn't matter, if they come onto the field as a sub and line up in a typical position, or try to, and the defense picks them up, that's good enough. Even if they're not out very far, if the defense picks them up, we're good with that. If they are trying to do a hideout play where they step one step off the sideline and try to do a hideout play, that's different. We're going to hit them with an unsportsmanlike for doing that. But if they come on in a regular substitution type of maneuver and try to set up in a normal wide receiver type position, and the defense picks them up, let's not nitpick that. Let's make those big. We're trying to avoid hideout plays is what we're trying to avoid. We're not trying to hit the offense for illegal substitution. So do your best to make sure those are big. If they're really toeing the line, then communicate with them and tell them, hey, you got to go in farther so that we don't have issues. But for the most part, if the defense picks them up and they're trying to run a normal substitution, let's just move on. So this one is mostly, John, taking a look at, what are the back judge's initial responsibilities, and then, what does he do after the return man turns upfield? Where does his vision go, and then how does he clean up at the end of the play?
Yeah. So initially, same as we said before, behind the receiver, 3 to 5 yards, 8 to 10 yards wide. He's a little deep, but that's fine. That's where he ended up, and the receiver comes up to catch it. So initially, he's going to want to watch the receiver make the catch, complete the catch, so that we don't have any issues with potential muff or whatever else. Once the returner has the ball and starts to work his way upfield, the back judge should be transitioning to whatever's happening right in front. This first initial block by 74, which appears clean, although he looks like he's going to reach out. There's no need to probably close down quite so hard, quite so early. He's in the side zone to kind of start with, which is fine, but he could have just probably held his position and officiated all this stuff from right about where he is. You want to avoid having to jump over players. I know sometimes that happens. But if you stay back here, you know, he's not going to get the spot. He's got a good view of all this action in front of him right here. He really doesn't need to be keyed on the ball carrier necessarily, although when we have a tackle being made, then his vision's probably going to go there to make sure we don't have a face mask or something like that. And eventually the short wing will come down and get a spot. So you really don't need to be, you know, running over there real hard. Just kind of stay where you are right now is a pretty good spot actually to officiate from.
Yeah, because I think if we stay, as John mentions, if we just stay right here and have a wide angle vision of this play, I think we have a better chance of picking up the block by 32 at the end of this play here. And
we have no idea on that block because we're looking at the runner and we're jumping over the guy that got blocked. So yeah, I agree, Jason. I would say even deeper where you were pointing out, and favor, you know, I think as back judges, we want to still kind of favor the middle of the field. That's where the action is here, as opposed to getting, you know, too narrowed down on our vision. If he stays, you know, at the numbers or inside the numbers a little bit here as a landmark and stays back maybe another couple of yards, and all of it right up to him. Because yeah, we need to see this block that 12 takes here at the 49-yard line.
that's and I know exactly what the back judge is saying as this play is happening, which is, oh, what did I miss? And the challenge with not having the umpire in the defensive backfield and turning and helping is you're really on an island for that kind of block. It might be a ways to go for the line judge, maybe not. But if we're back and keep that in wide perspective, we have a better shot of picking this kind of a hit up, and we can lose the game. It can get away from us if we allow, you know, late hits like that to go. And again, as we mentioned on the kickoff play earlier, you know, no one really cares about the forward progress. If we're off by a yard or 3 yards, no one's going to care. But if we miss hits like on number 12, they will care about that. And then players are going to start taking matters into their own hands if we're not going to pick up, you know, late hits and unnecessary stuff. So I've been there, been too close, missed these kind of things. So the moral of the story is try to, you know, stay deep, you know, play center field and pick up all these, this kind of action.
Mike Spanier, would we want our line of scrimmage official on this side to get down a tad bit further? My question really relates to him then kind of focusing on this runner and the tackle and allowing the back judge to kind of take these blocks in order and not, I mean, we want somebody obviously watching the ball carriers he's getting tackled, but if the line of scrimmage official comes down a little bit further and we know he's going to have this, that allows then the back judge to look off and get these blocks away from it a little bit.
Well, I don't think we really need to be concerned about the spot. And I know what you're referring to. If the line of scrimmage official on the top puts his head on a swivel, and he should be able to see both the approximately where the official goes or where the runner goes out of bounds, but also have an opinion on that block. And I think both officials can have a real good look at that. I do think that the line of scrimmage official, the line judge on the bottom, has a real good opportunity there to clean up that play. Also, it's a long way to go, but it's kind of a cheap shot, and so I think he could possibly pick that up. I don't know if that answers your question, but
no, it does, Mike. Again, it's not about necessarily even. I wasn't sure how far we want those line of scrimmage guys to go down on the punt, and that makes sense. What you said, he's in a pretty good position to officiate the play. You know, we're not going to have what we have in 7-person, where you have, you know, the luxury of those people coming up. So that's just part of the give and take. My concern is I just want our back judges to hear that don't get too focused on the ball carrier here because the spot will take care of itself. We want to officiate in front of and around the play as much as anything.
Yeah, I think that's the real important point on this play is for that back judge to stay back. But I know exactly what Jason is talking about. We've all been in that situation. But now with the umpire in the backfield, the offensive backfield, like we've had, I think that we have to get more out of our line of scrimmage officials on punt plays like this. And they're going to have to pick up some of the blocks and late hits and so on.
And I appreciate the hustle of the linesmen on this play, but with the back judge cheating to their side, I'm not sure we need to be that far down.
That's correct. That's what
I think,
refer.
yeah, I think it kind of narrows our vision as you and John have mentioned, and so and the line judge, if we release at the snap, like you said, Mike, we should be right around the 45, 50, somewhere in that neighborhood. And there's no reason to work back upfield because we're officiating backside. So
Right.
If we stay at the 45 or the 50, you know, as you mentioned, Mike, we probably should have a look at this. And what a big crew saver this would be if line judge could come in and get this one.
Right. Because you can also help with the spot. I mean, so you should be coming in, off your sideline. It's not going to be a reverse. So I really do think that, both line of scrimmage officials have an opportunity to get this.
Oh, very good. So I know it's a line of scrimmage type play, but Fred, can you talk about, offensive holding and what are we looking for, and how do we process that and decide this block is truly worthy of having a hold? So specifically we're looking at this block here at the 49, but since you're judging that at the line of scrimmage quite a bit, just would like your philosophy on that.
Certainly, when we talk about holding, we got to, in general, look at a couple of things. Number one, we got to look at what kind of impact it has on the defensive player. Some material restriction is another way to think about it. Oftentimes, offensive players get their hands on players, even get their hands a little bit outside the frame, so to speak. But if there's no material restriction or no impact on it, that doesn't necessarily mean you got to hold. Also, you want to look at point of attack kind of things. If the action is right there like that one at the point of attack, it may not take as much in order for that to have an impact or material restriction. It might be just a slight grab, but it might be just enough to get that player to the outside. So look at, number one, what kind of material restriction or impact it has on the play. Number two, look at if it's a point of attack. And then another thing to look at too is what happens when the player tries to disengage. The defender, in this case, tries to disengage. If he can disengage and get away from that kind of action by the offensive player and still make a play, you can still pass on it. But if he can't disengage, can't get away, and can't make a play on it, then you've got a hold going on right there at the point of attack. And then try to put it into a category too. Some of the more obvious categories are a grab and restrict, where they're grabbing the player and restricting them. And then another obvious one is a hook and restrict, where they may not actually be grabbing, but they're hooking around the shoulder or hooking around the waist, a hook and restrict. And then one of the more obvious ones is the takedown, where they actually just kind of tackle the guy and take him down.
Yeah, and Fred, I'm sure you can speak to this, but just seeing the whole play,
Yes.
we can get to it late and it can look really ugly, especially when they do a rip. They can put themselves into a hold that we wouldn't want called because they put themselves in that position. But if we get to it late, it certainly looks like they got hogtied.
Yeah.
So if you could speak to the importance of that and just disciplining yourself to see the whole thing.
Yeah, it's one of the things when you're on the offensive side of the field, you're going to be able to see a lot more of the action by the offensive player, especially what they're doing with their hands. And you're going to be able to, like I said earlier, kind of step back and take a breath and see the whole thing and be able to make a judgment on all the action by the offensive player. So if you can get yourself in that mindset to just kind of slow down your decision-making process a little bit and just see the whole play and make a determination on some of those things that I talked about. Is there material restriction? Is it the point of attack? Is the defender having trouble getting disengaging? And see that from the start of the block to the end of the block. And all this happens in 1 or 2 seconds. I realize when I'm talking about it, I don't want to make it sound like I think it's really easy to do that, because it's not. But just kind of take a breath and see the whole play. And when I was at a clinic years ago, working high school and small college, and Mike Spanier was one of the clinicians, he just talked about, using the mechanic of, is that a foul? Is that a foul? Is that a foul kind of thing, where you just kind of talking yourself through it and seeing the whole play and making a decision on putting all those pieces of information together.
Thanks, Fred. Yeah, I think it's just something that we've kind of seen over the years, where we tend to throw because something looks ugly, and ugly is not necessarily illegal. And we just need to make sure we see the whole thing, make sure there's a restriction, as Fred said. And a mere grab is not necessarily a hold, as Fred mentioned. And they have to make an effort too. They can't just stand there, and act like they're getting held. If they're trying to make a play and they're getting restricted, there's a restriction there, then that's when we can get involved. And at point of attack, if they're doing this kind of thing on the right side of the formation and this play is going left, we can stay off of that. Okay, so this one, goal line play. So inside the 5, working to the goal line at the snap. Keep in mind it's 4th and goal, and forward, backward, illegal blocks, threatening the pylons. We got a lot going on in this play, and just ask the clinicians their perspective. I'll start with Fred. Fred, I think with our positioning this year, I think we're going to be in a little bit better shape to pick up these blocks here. And would you say that's where our vision should be?
Yeah, at this point in the play, we should be transitioning back out to, which would be our left side, the front side, and not necessarily watching this receiver, but we're going to be watching how these blocks set up in front of the receiver. Our initial keys at the snap kind of lead us out there anyway, because they're not closing down real fast to the inside. They actually step to the outside. So if we're reading our initial responsibilities at the snap, we're going to already be out there from our position in the offensive backfield. So we're going to be in a perfect position to rule on both of these blocks out here, whether we got a block in the back, if somebody goes low, whether we got a clip, we got a blind side, all those things. So, and again, it's one of these plays where we don't have to move very much, if at all, at the snap, and we just keep our position and just, swivel our head and pivot maybe just a little bit. We'll maintain a good position, good mechanics to be out there to make a judgment on these blocks.
Mike, you want to talk about line of scrimmage and just our initial movements, and then where, how we should, move toward the end of the play to be in a good spot?
Yeah, we want to be sure our sideline is clear, especially the area around the goal line before the play. We'd like you to be back as far as you can. In this case, it's a 9-man, so it isn't marked, but you know, you'd be as deep as the goal pylon perhaps versus the goal marking rather versus the pylon, so that you just can move laterally versus having to move back as the play is coming towards you. So you'd be in a position to make that call in a stationary position. You know, so if you'd be back by where he is right now, he'd have a real nice look at both the pass and the blocks, and then also be able to rule on the play. But here in this case, he's moving back, and as the play develops and it ends, he almost gets knocked down. So if he were back, he would be able to now take a look at that play rather than, you can see he's moving. So he makes the right call, covers the play well, you know, gets the right position or the right forward progress. But again, I think it's a much easier play to officiate, to get that perspective. If you start deep and then move laterally to the goal line.
Yeah, where he ends up at the end of the play is where we want to go initially.
Correct.
And if we can work even deeper, that's even better. And I think that's what Mike's getting at is the conversation with some of the people down by the goal line, that they need to back up so that you have room to work. And the unfortunate thing is some of the worst offenders are the people that are working for the league as staff. You know, we just got to have conversations with them about, you need room to work. And you know, it's like officiating basketball. We don't put our toes right on the end line. We're going to work deep because it puts us in better position to have a good look at this play. Mike Cannon, is there anything, you know, referee wise, you know, that you want to discuss on how this play develops at all?
Well, as soon as the pitch goes, you know, out in front of you, you're obviously gonna, that person becomes your guy. You're gonna try to watch for blocks in front of him. He quickly turns around and throws. So now, you know, especially because we're down in the red zone, forward, backward pretty much becomes your responsibility all the way. So you want to make sure, you know, you see that in this case, it's a forward pass. And you obviously you need to watch for contact against this passer also, but he's pretty clear as he's releasing this ball, you know, so you should be able to get a really good look whether this is forward or backwards.
Yeah, and I think that's the key piece that Mike mentioned for referees down here inside, you know, the 10, inside the 5, is that remember, your line of scrimmage officials are releasing to the goal line at the snap, and so there's, especially on a pass that's this deep at about the 11, they're not going to be in position to help you on forward, backward, and so as Mike said, it's going to be, you know, your primary, which means, you know, so Mike, if that's the case and you sense that this is happening, would you move off to the right side and get more of a perspective towards the sideline, or would you move straight backwards? What would you do positioning wise?
Yeah, I think it just depends on how much time you have, Jason. You know, I think if you have time to move to the right a little bit, that gives you a better perspective. But I would even quickly glance at feet of both the quarterback and also the guy catching the ball.
What?
And then John, want to talk about back judge and their assistance on these blocks?
Well, can you go back to the original start of the play? So I'm thinking, is the back judge probably looking down at the bottom here initially? Well, let's back up. Back judge should be pretty much in the middle of the field here. Back off the back line a little bit. Give yourself as wide an angle as possible. This first guy that comes back in towards the ball, obviously anybody coming back in like that has a brick in their hand. So we want to clear that block first. So once that happens, then right here, once this guy comes back in, that block's clean. Now we got to get out here and start helping with these blocks, whether it's that initial block or that second block. This is a play where I don't think our back judges want to be moving a whole lot. If you slide down the line towards the bottom of the screen here, you're going to have too far to, you just want to stay there. We're in tight quarters. We're only 14 yards of officiating in terms of depth. So you want to really just have your head down at the bottom first, your eyes at the bottom. Once you clear that block with this guy coming back inside, then I would get out in front of this action at the top of the screen. And again, if you see something illegal up here, this first block, for sure that second block you can have an opinion on. You're not that far away. And then ultimately you're going to come over. When you will move is at the end of the play to come over here and help clean up with this action that's out of bounds. So this would be a case where you wouldn't move much during the play, but at the end of the play, you want to get over here and help out because there's several players in the vicinity of that short wing.
So the block that John is talking about is this receiver at the bottom of the screen, and same for line of scrimmage, just being aware of a potential crack. He's coming back in towards the ball. We could have blindside block. We could have block in the back, legal block below the waist. Those are all possibilities. So, even though we're not hyper focused on this guy because he's not in press coverage, anytime people are going against the grain, whether it's receivers cracking or change of possession, punt plays, anytime you see players are going against the grain, going upstream, those are people with the brick in their hand, and we got to keep an eye on them and clear them first before moving on. So we see, okay, he's high, he's fine. And then as John said, transitioning to these blocks. And I think these blocks are fine. We initiate with open hands. We get them in the side. And I don't think the initial one is a hold either. So I'm good with these as legal blocks. We just need to be able to see them and have an opinion on them, both as umpires, line of scrimmage. So you see that's a good side block. And I'm good with those blocks, but we want to be able to see them from the beginning, and no real restriction by 72 either. So good with legal blocks on these, but we want to be able to see them and have an opinion. So on this one, we got two different aspects with the two receivers at the top of the screen. And just maybe some comments from Mike Spanier on, how can we, this is a really tough play to officiate because you got twins at the top of the screen. Okay. And then they both come downfield to initiate blocks. And then they both have suspect blocks that we have to officiate. And maybe back judge can help, and maybe John can comment on that. But if you look at the block by the receiver closest to the bottom of the screen of these twins, he initiates contact, initiates, and stays with them. So even though there's contact in the back, he never loses contact with him. So if he ultimately puts him on the ground in the back, that's not a foul. So we don't call that one. But if we go back and look at the block by the receiver at the top, he comes out to initiate, doesn't make contact, but the first contact he makes is two hands in the back, right at the point of attack, displacement, and is properly called for a block in the back by the line of scrimmage official. So any thoughts on that, Mike Spanier?
Yeah, I think the official does a nice job of getting that second block. But I think to start with, if he were further back, gave himself some room to get a better look at both blocks, I think that would be helpful. And again, as you pointed out, the initial block is okay. It starts on the front, finishes. And there's an example too. If you just saw the end of the play, you might be tendency to pull the trigger on it and throw the flag. But in this case, he obviously didn't, and does a nice job of getting that second one, which isn't much of a push, but it's from the back, and it's enough to take him out of the play.
And Mike, would you say, as this play develops, that we would want the line of scrimmage official to work more towards the offensive backfield and allow the play to progress in front of them than officiate from behind?
Yeah, that's what I mean. If you're further back, all you'd have to do
Yeah.
is pivot,
Mhm.
and you need to have a real good look at both blocks.
Yeah, so we're talking, maybe working more towards the R and prep bowl or the P, and then letting the running back, come past you. Just because I think, as Mike mentioned, if he's at the R or P at this point and is looking back in towards these blocks, I think would have a real good perspective on that. Obviously, he gets this one, and that's great. But to Mike's point, the block by the inside receiver almost looks uglier than the one that was called. And if we don't see that, that one looks worse almost than that one at the top of the screen. Yet the one at the top of the screen is the one that's illegal. And the only other thing I would say about this, and it's just really a small piece, is line of scrimmage, continue to officiate the play. Don't be in a hurry. Clear players from the sideline. You can put the ball on the ground because maybe they want the result of the play. So put the ball on the ground, wait for the back judge or umpire to come and take your spot, and then you can report to the referee, and the referee is going to make their way over to you. But that's the only thing. The other thing I'd say about this play, but I think the key aspect on this is working deeper as line of scrimmage officials, and then getting back to what we talked about earlier, seeing blocks start, develop, and finish, so that we don't call fouls on plays that we don't earn it.
Jason, I would say too that the back judge needs to offer some insight here, one way or the other. I believe with this alignment that initially the back judge wants to probably be with that top guy or stay with that block a little longer. And as you said, that inside guy, the line of scrimmage guy, would be looking at a little longer. But in any event, I think the back judge needs to come over, if that's his initial key, and offer something as to, he didn't have a block in the back. So he needs to communicate, I think, with that short wing to some degree on this play.
I agree, John. That's a great point. Is if the top guy is the initial key of the back judge, we should be sticking with him as this play develops. And that way, as John just mentioned, if the linesman is down on this, and as the back judge, it's our key, and we don't have a foul, we need to have a discussion with the official who calls something on our key. Because obviously you chose not to call it for some reason. And so you should have a dialogue with that official, the calling official, about that. Now, that's not to try to talk them out of any foul that they called on your key. It's just, if you have information to bring to the table, then don't keep that to yourself. It's kind of like, if you think something's wrong on the field, say something. It's kind of like the airport. If you see something, say something. Don't come in at halftime and say, hey, I think we missed that penalty enforcement or that block, because, if you're working on my crew, we're going to tie you up and throw you in a locker, because it's no good. That information is no good to us at halftime or after the game. Tell us at the time. If you think something's wrong, open your mouth, say something. I'd rather spend 5 minutes on the field discussing it to get it right than to just kind of, blow it off and then we get it wrong. And those kind of dead ball periods are under our control, and we need to control that conversation. So, Fred, this is hands to the face here. Can you maybe touch on picking up those kinds of things from the new position?
Right, can you run it back from the beginning real quick? Thank you.
Sure.
Once again, your positioning, there's no tight end out here, so you might use the numbers as a landmark. But when you are watching your initial responsibilities at the snap, don't just focus on what we might see as some of the traditional actions in there, like holding and or low blocks. You gotta, since you're going to be about 15 yards back, you're going to have a broader perspective, and like I said, keeping a little bit more still, you'll be able to have a broader perspective and pick up some of these things. Now, the hands to the face by the defense, I'll admit, is a little bit more difficult to pick up from the offensive perspective. But when you see a offensive player's head turn like this and it's prolonged like that, and the defender's got his hand up there for quite a period of time, you could probably even justify this as a face mask as well. I'm not sure what the enforcement is for hands to the face in high school, but if you're calling hands to the face and or face mask, which I think Jason just said is the same, you'd have a good call here. So being in the offensive backfield, watching your initial responsibilities, your initial keys, and not just focusing on what would be some traditional calls, but having that broader perspective to pick up some of these not so traditional calls like hands to the face, and seeing this action where you see someone's head being pinned back and turned like that for a sustained period of time.
Yeah, and I would echo Fred's comments about it. It is a bigger challenge to pick these up correctly from, the other side of the ball, where in this case, you see the umpire in the screen, he's looking right at it and picks it up, which is great. But where we can get fooled back in the new spot is, they could be pushing up on the pads and pushing it up into their chin, and it can look worse than it really is. And so it's making sure that the hand or arms are in the neck, chin, face mask area, and they're pinning them back, or it's prolonged contact like this. And this is the kind of contact we would want for a foul, and it's correctly called by the umpire in this case.
Jason, could we haven't discussed this, but and maybe John, you have an opinion on this. Is it something that now with the umpire and the offensive backfield that we'd want our back judges maybe to be a little more conscious of in getting the obvious one?
I guess what I would say, and I'll let John should weigh in also. What I would say is back judges, let's be a little bit more cognizant of our read step at the snap. So, we have a tendency as back judges to bail out right away on plays. We can take a step, read the play. So if we read the guards, if they stand up and pass block, then they're passing. If they're blocking down or firing out, then it's a run play. If we have a run play, there's really no reason for back judge to go anywhere. And especially now that we have no umpire in that traditional spot, back judges, do your one read step. And then if you read run, then stay put, because if you're bailing out, you're really going to be of no assistance on a play like this. Now, with that said, it's going to be tough. I think it's tough for back judges to get a foul like this from 20 yards. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but it'd be tough. But I think we'll be in better position to assist on second level blocks if we do our read step and don't bail on running plays. John, anything to add to that?
No, I would not really. I would concur with what you just said, Jason. I do think, Mike, we are going to probably have to ask our back judges to be a little more focused on this because of the change. But again, like Jason said, we don't want back judges guessing on this any more than we want anybody else. But if it opens up to you and you need to read, like Jason said, quickly, whether it's run or pass. If you have run, or it's a short pass, and you go right to this point of attack, if you get that action that's again prolonged or sustained, as Fred said, and it opens up to you, and don't be afraid to fire in there if that's right where you're looking. More likely you'd have a shot at the second level block that might be occurring beyond this or behind it. But I agree, Jason, more emphasis on reading and reacting as opposed to making those first couple steps back on a running play, obviously.
I guess that's what I was referring to, is that the back judge now needs to be more involved.
Yep, and especially right here at the 32, 33 yard line, 31. This is where our vision needs to be. And if we're bailing out on a run play, we're not going to be able to assist with blocks in that area because we're really going to be relying on the umpire and the referee to pick up these blocks at the line of scrimmage.
And I would just add, Jason, this is kind of an obvious statement, but it's probably worth saying, is we still have to, remember our back judges in 5-person are our last and only line of defense to get the other direction. So we don't want somebody, looking in there and biting on some kind of ball fake, and then we have somebody running, beyond us. That we don't want to have happening either. So it's a fine balance, and you kind of got to train yourself on what you're looking at.
Very good. Okay, we're going to do one last play, and then that will be it for the night. So we're looking at the block at the bottom of the screen here, and keeping in mind we have forward, backward to deal with. So Mike Spanier, can you talk about how we help a judge on initial forward, backward, but then also get our vision to this block? And maybe John Lusavansky could weigh in on how to get this one.
Well, we immediately look to a yard marker, to a big line, and as you can see here, we have the receivers on a big line, and the passer is on a hash, or a yard line rather, and that gives us some direction, or a semblance of a direction, and so you can read that in this case, I think pretty easily. If you've given yourself some perspective and depth. And then of course, once the pass is complete, there's no one close to the runner, and you have a real good opportunity to rule on the block that takes place right there at the 10-yard line.
So if you watch this, and it's probably hard, it's probably a little choppy to see, but if you watch this block, he never really loses contact with this guy. So he's still in contact with them. So again, if we initiate contact and maintain that contact, and ultimately there's contact in the back like we have here, this is not a foul. But I guarantee if we get to this one late, we probably would throw on this one. And I would understand why, but if you see this,
I think in this scenario, the back judge pretty much has to be down here. I mean, we want it, he's lined up in the middle, but he's got to be down to this guy. I can't see if it's not pressed necessarily, but there's nothing else for the back judge to be doing at the beginning than to be down here at the bottom. And when this sets up as a pass, he needs to be hard on that block all the way. I would say this would be a great no call if he stays away from it, because he saw it from beginning to end.
Yep. And this, getting back to what John mentioned earlier, if the line of scrimmage official throws on this one, or even the umpire throws, this would be a great one for the umpire to come in, or the back judge to come in and provide that feedback, because as John mentioned, this is our key, the outside receiver at the bottom of the screen. We should see this block from the beginning and know that he never lost contact. Therefore, we should not have a foul on this play. Now, let's say he did lose contact. He does, block him into the tackle. So I think we can, stay away from it if the block is into the tackle like it is here. That's assuming he loses contact with them. So I think we can stay off of this one. We don't call this. I'm not sure it's because we decided they never lost contact. That's why, or because we felt he was blocked into the tackle. Either way, I don't think this is a foul, but we want to make sure that we see this all the way and that we're prepared to offer information if a flag does come down. So,
and remember, when we're in the red zone, we can stay with our key even in 5-person. So the back judge really can stick with this longer than you might in the middle of the field. So this is a really good one, learning one for back judges to know that they kind of own that block because everybody else is taken up with something else to be officiating probably.
Yep. And I think positioning wise, we're not inside the 15 yet, or we are inside the 15. I lied. So we should be on the end line. So we're good there. And that's where this back judge is. So it's a little bit longer ways to go. So we might have to adjust along the end line to have a better, better look at this. But we're in good initial position. We just need to see this block as this is our key. So, okay. I know a lot of you like football like I do, and happy it's back, and happy to talk about plays. So we really appreciate you joining us tonight. Have a great season. Glad you're back. And thanks to Mike, John, and Fred for their expertise. They're go-to people throughout the year. So if you have questions, they're happy to help. Same with our coordinator staff. Many of them are on here tonight. Feel free to reach out to them, ask questions as we go with the year, and hopefully we'll have a training tape out yet this week prior to the first game, and we'll get those out as we go. And again, stay safe. Maintain distancing and all those pieces. We need you the whole year. Really proud to be associated with all of you and the fine work that you do. So thanks to the clinicians, thanks to all of you, and have a great night and have a great season.